During the Great Depression, your grandfather didn't just grow vegetables in his backyard. He grew survival, 20 incredible crops that kept entire families alive through America's darkest economic times have been completely forgotten by modern gardeners. The reasons why these Depression-era lifesavers disappeared will shock you, and what they could do for your garden today might just change everything you think you know about growing food. Number 20, Mangel wurzels, the giant that fed America. Picture a beet so massive it could feed a family for a week. That's exactly what Mangel wurzels were to Depression-era families across the American heartland. These incredible root vegetables could grow as large as footballs, sometimes weighing up to 20 pounds each, and they were worth their weight in gold when money was scarce and food was even scarcer. What made Mangel wurzels truly remarkable wasn't just their size, but their incredible versatility and storage life. Families would harvest these giants in late fall and store them in root cellars, where they'd stay fresh for 6 to 8 months, providing a reliable food source through the harshest winters. They could be cooked like regular beets, mashed like potatoes, or even fed to livestock to keep animals healthy when commercial feed was unaffordable. The high sugar content made them surprisingly sweet when cooked, and many families discovered they could even be used to make a crude but effective molasses substitute during sugar shortages. Number 19. Salsify, the oyster plant that grew on land. While most families struggled to afford luxury foods like fresh oysters, smart Depression-era gardeners had a secret weapon growing right in their backyards. Salsify, nicknamed the oyster plant, produced long white roots that, when cooked properly, tasted remarkably similar to fresh oysters, bringing a touch of elegance to even the humblest dinner table. This remarkable root vegetable was like having a natural pantry buried in your garden. You could leave Salsify in the ground all winter long, digging up roots whenever you needed them, even when the ground was frozen solid. The roots would actually improve in flavor after a few hard frosts, becoming sweeter and more tender. Clever families also discovered they were getting 2 vegetables in one: the roots for winter meals and the young spring greens for fresh salads when other vegetables were still weeks away from harvest. Number 18. Jerusalem artichokes, the Native American survivor. Long before the Depression taught European settlers about survival, Native Americans had cultivated one of the most reliable and productive crops ever grown on American soil. Jerusalem artichokes, despite their name, aren't from Jerusalem and aren't artichokes. They're Native American sunflower tubers that became a lifeline for families who knew their secret. These remarkable plants were pure genius for Depression-era survival because they were truly perennial, meaning once you planted them, they came back year after year without any work from you. Even better, they actually spread and multiplied on their own, creating an expanding food supply that grew bigger every season. The tubers had a natural sweetness thanks to inulin instead of starch, making them a treat when sugar was a luxury most families couldn't afford. You could harvest them all winter long by simply digging up what you needed and leaving the rest for later, creating a living food storage system that never spoiled. Number 17. Rutabagas, the poor man's potato. When regular potatoes failed or became too expensive, Depression-era families turned to a humble root vegetable that packed more nutrition and lasted longer than anything else in their gardens. Rutabagas, often called Swedes by older generations, were the ultimate survival crop because they thrived in conditions that would kill other vegetables and provided more vitamin C than oranges when fresh fruit was impossible to find. What made rutabagas absolutely essential during hard times was their incredible storage life and adaptability. These hardy roots could be stored for 4 to 6 months in a simple root cellar, staying fresh and nutritious through the entire winter. Unlike regular potatoes, rutabagas didn't care about poor soil, drought, or early frosts. They actually got sweeter after cold weather hit them. Families would plant them in late summer and harvest enough to last through spring, knowing they had a reliable source of both calories and essential vitamins when other foods were scarce. Number 16. Turnips, the 6-week miracle. When time was running out and winter was approaching fast, Depression-era families had one crop they could count on to produce food in record time. Turnips could go from seed to harvest in just 6 weeks, making them the ultimate emergency crop when other vegetables failed or when families needed food fast. The beauty of turnips during the Depression wasn't just their speed, it was their incredible efficiency. Every part of the plant was useful, from the fast-growing roots that could be eaten fresh, stored, or pickled, to the nutritious greens that provided fresh vegetables within weeks of planting. Smart families would plant turnips multiple times during the growing season, ensuring a constant supply of fresh food. Even when drought hit and other crops withered, turnips kept producing, and their ability to handle frost meant families could harvest fresh vegetables well into winter when everything else was done. Number 15. Collard greens, the survivor's green. While other vegetables gave up when times got tough, collard greens proved they were the ultimate survivors of the Depression-era garden. These remarkable plants had an almost supernatural ability to keep producing fresh, nutritious leaves no matter what Mother Nature threw at them, from scorching summer heat waves to bitter winter frosts. What made collards absolutely invaluable to struggling families was their never-quit attitude and incredible nutritional density. You could start harvesting the lower leaves in early summer, and the plants would keep producing new growth from the top like a never-ending food factory. When winter temperatures dropped below 10 degrees Fahrenheit, collards didn't just survive, they got sweeter, often providing fresh vegetables when everything else in the garden was buried under snow. The leaves were packed with more calcium than milk and enough vitamin C to prevent scurvy, making them a complete health insurance policy growing right outside the kitchen door. Number 14. Swiss chard, the cut-and-come-again champion. Depression-era gardeners discovered that Swiss chard had an almost magical ability that set it apart from every other green vegetable. The more you harvested it, the more it grew. This cut-and-come-again nature meant that just a few plants could feed a family for months, making it one of the most valuable crops in any survival garden. Unlike other greens that needed constant replanting, Swiss chard would keep producing from the same roots all season long, from late spring until hard frost. The large, crinkled leaves could be harvested when young and tender for fresh eating, or left to grow larger for cooking in soups and stews. Even during the hottest summer days when lettuce would bolt and turn bitter, Swiss chard remained sweet and productive. What made it especially precious during hard times was its incredible vitamin content, particularly vitamins A and C, which were otherwise expensive and hard to come by when fresh fruits and vegetables were luxuries most families couldn't afford. Number 13. Winter cabbage, the Danish ballhead secret. Not all cabbages are created equal, and Depression-era families knew that one variety stood head and shoulders above the rest when it came to survival. Danish ballhead cabbage wasn't just any ordinary cabbage. It was specially bred for long-term storage and became a lifesaver for families trying to make it through winter without starving. What made Danish ballhead so special was its incredibly dense, tight heads that felt as heavy as bowling balls and could stay fresh for an amazing 6 to 8 months in a simple root cellar. These weren't your typical loose, leafy cabbages. They were packed so tightly that they were practically indestructible. Even when frost hit the garden, these tough plants stood their ground, actually getting sweeter as temperatures dropped. The vitamin C content was so high that just one serving provided as much nutrition as a glass of orange juice, crucial during winter months when fresh fruit wasn't available. Smart gardeners would plant their winter cabbage in midsummer, timing it perfectly so the heads would mature just as cold weather arrived. Number 12, navy beans, the protein powerhouse. While meat became a luxury most families couldn't afford during the Depression, navy beans provided nearly as much protein as a serving of beef at a fraction of the cost. These small white beans were protein powerhouses that could replace expensive meat in family meals while providing the energy needed for hard physical work. What made navy beans absolutely essential for survival was their remarkable ability to dry right on the vine, making them practically foolproof to store without any special equipment. Families would plant them in spring, tend them through summer, and by fall, they'd have beans that could last for years, stored in simple glass jars or cloth sacks. But navy beans did something extraordinary beyond just feeding families. They actually improved the soil they grew in by fixing nitrogen from the air, making the garden more productive for next year's crops. A single row of navy beans could produce enough dried protein to sustain a family all winter long, and they could be used in everything from hearty soups to baked beans that stretched other ingredients. Number 11, Kentucky Wonder Pole beans, the vertical victory. When garden space was precious and every square foot had to count, Kentucky Wonder Pole beans solved the problem brilliantly by growing up instead of out. These remarkable climbing beans could reach heights of 8 feet, turning a small corner of the garden into a towering food production system that produced more beans per square foot than any other variety. The magic of Kentucky Wonder Beans wasn't just their space-saving ability, it was their incredible productivity and dual-purpose nature. Once they started producing, these beans seemed almost supernatural in their output. The more you picked, the more they grew, with families sending children out every morning to harvest the new beans that had appeared overnight. A single pole bean plant could produce for months, providing fresh green beans for summer meals and plenty extra to dry for winter protein. Depression-era gardeners would set up simple poles or trellises made from whatever materials they had, branches, twine, or even old ladders, proving that even families with tiny backyard gardens could grow enough beans to last through winter. Number 10, ground cherries, nature's candy wrapped in paper. While most garden vegetables were purely practical, ground cherries brought something special to Depression-era gardens, a touch of sweetness wrapped in nature's own paper packaging. These unusual fruits, related to tomatoes, grew inside papery husks that looked like tiny Chinese lanterns, and the sweet golden fruits inside tasted like a magical blend of pineapple and vanilla. What made ground cherries especially valuable during hard times was their incredible storage ability and self-seeding nature. The papery husks served as perfect natural wrappers, protecting the sweet fruits inside and allowing them to store for months without any special treatment. Once you had ground cherries in your garden, they would come back year after year on their own, dropping seeds that would sprout into new plants without any work from you. Depression-era children would delight in finding these naturally wrapped candies in the garden, peeling back the papery husks to reveal the marble-sized treasures that provided rare sweet treats when store-bought candy was an impossible luxury. Number 9, field peas, the tough southern survivor. In the unrelenting heat and drought of Depression-era summers, field peas proved themselves as the ultimate survivors of the American South. These hardy legumes thrived when other plants withered, their deep roots reaching down to find moisture even in the driest soil, making them like nature's own drought insurance policy. Field peas were the Swiss Army knife of Depression-era crops because of their incredible versatility and soil-improving properties. Young pods could be eaten fresh like snap peas, tender peas could be shelled for immediate use, or the peas could be left to dry right on the vine for winter storage. But field peas did more than just feed families. They actually enriched the soil with nitrogen, making next year's crops grow better. Their high protein content meant they could serve as a meat substitute, helping families stay healthy even when they couldn't afford other protein sources. The plants produced continuously from midsummer until frost, ensuring a steady supply of fresh food during the hottest, most challenging months of the year. Number 8. Field corn, the foundation of survival. When people think of corn today, they picture sweet corn eaten fresh off the cob. But during the Depression, families relied on something far more valuable: field corn. This wasn't the sweet corn we know today. It was a hearty, high-calorie crop that could feed a family for months and served as the foundation of survival for countless American families. Field corn had an incredible advantage over other vegetables because it served multiple purposes and stored almost indefinitely. Families would let it mature fully on the stalk until the kernels were hard and dry, then harvest and grind it into cornmeal that provided the foundation for countless meals. From cornbread and porridge to corn cakes and mush, a single acre of field corn could produce enough cornmeal to feed a family for an entire year. The dried corn stored perfectly in simple barns or sheds, requiring no special equipment or preparation. During the hardest times of the Depression, this cornmeal became the backbone of family nutrition, providing essential calories when other foods were scarce and expensive. Number 7. Storage onions, the long-lasting keeper. While field corn provided the calories, storage onions brought both flavor and incredible keeping power to Depression-era pantries. These weren't the sweet onions we find in grocery stores today. These were tough, long-keeping varieties like Yellow Globe and Australian Brown that could last an amazing 8 to 10 months when properly stored. What made storage onions absolutely essential during hard times was their natural ability to fight disease and preserve other foods. When stored alongside other vegetables, the natural compounds in storage onions help prevent spoilage, extending the life of an entire root cellar. These hardy onions were remarkably easy to grow, thriving in almost any soil and requiring very little care throughout the growing season. Families would plant them in spring, harvest in late summer, and braid the strong tops together to hang in cool, dry places. A good crop of storage onions meant having both seasoning and nutrition throughout the winter months, adding vital nutrients and flavor to winter meals when fresh vegetables were just a memory. Number 6. Cardoon, the forgotten winter delicacy. Just when the garden seemed most bare and winter had settled in for good, Cardoon provided an unexpected winter treat that most modern gardeners have never heard of. These remarkable plants, close cousins to the artichoke, brought something special to Depression-era gardens. Fresh vegetables in the middle of winter when everything else was dormant under snow. Looking like giant silvery celery stalks, Cardoon were prized for their unique ability to produce edible stems even in cold weather. Unlike most garden vegetables that died back in winter, Cardoon were perennial in many areas, coming back year after year without replanting. The plants grew impressively tall, creating striking silvery green towers in the garden that could withstand frost and continue producing food well into winter. Depression-era families would blanch the stalks by wrapping them in paper or cloth, resulting in tender, artichoke-flavored stems that could be baked, braised, or added to soups. This cold, hardy nature meant fresh vegetables when most gardens were buried under snow, providing both nutrition and hope during the darkest months of the year. Number 5. Skirret, the sweet root time forgot. While modern gardens focus on carrots for sweetness, Depression-era families knew about a far more remarkable root vegetable that has been almost completely forgotten. Skirret produced clusters of white roots that tasted sweeter than carrots and packed more natural sugar than almost any other root vegetable. making it a precious source of sweetness when sugar was too expensive for most families to buy. What made Skirret truly valuable was its perennial nature and incredible sweetness. Once planted, it would come back year after year, producing more roots with each passing season. During the Depression, when sugar was often too expensive for many families to afford, Skirret provided natural sweetness that made plain meals more enjoyable and helped stretch other ingredients. The plants were incredibly hardy, laughing at winter's worst weather while storing their sweet roots safely underground. Families could harvest these roots all winter long, simply digging what they needed and leaving the rest in the ground, nature's own root cellar. Each plant would grow bigger and produce more roots every year, creating an expanding source of natural sweetness that required almost no work to maintain. Number 4. Good King Henry, the king of spring greens. When most garden vegetables were still months away from producing, Good King Henry earned its royal name by providing some of the first fresh food of spring. This remarkable perennial green was like having multiple vegetables in one plant, and it appeared weeks before other garden plants were ready to harvest. As soon as the snow melted, tender shoots would emerge that could be harvested and cooked like asparagus. As the plant grew taller, its arrow-shaped leaves provided fresh greens that could be eaten raw or cooked like spinach. The plant's self-seeding nature meant it spread itself naturally, creating new plants without any effort from the gardener. Depression-era families valued Good King Henry because it was among the first fresh vegetables available after winter, appearing when families desperately needed vitamins and fresh food after months of preserved and stored foods. Once established, these plants would return year after year, growing stronger and producing more food each season while requiring almost no care, thriving in spots where other vegetables wouldn't grow. Number 3. American groundnut, the native superfood. Long before the Depression, Native Americans knew about a remarkable vine that produced food-packed tubers with 3 times the protein of potatoes. The American groundnut had an extraordinary secret. Its underground tubers contained more protein than almost any other root crop ever grown in American gardens, making it one of the most nutritious foods available during hard times. This high protein content made groundnuts incredibly valuable as a meat substitute during the Depression when animal protein was expensive and scarce. The vines would climb up corn stalks or garden fences, producing clusters of marble-sized tubers that could be harvested without killing the plant. These tubers could stay fresh right in the ground through winter, creating a natural storage system that required no special preparation. Each plant would spread underground, creating new tubers that could be harvested year after year. Depression-era families discovered what Native Americans had known for centuries, that a patch of groundnuts provided reliable, high-protein food with almost no effort, and the plants were virtually indestructible, surviving drought, poor soil, and harsh winters while continuing to produce their nutritious tubers. Number 2. Runner beans. Beauty meets bounty. During the Depression, every plant in the garden needed to earn its keep, and runner beans went above and beyond this call of duty. These remarkable climbing beans served triple duty in the garden, providing fresh snap beans in summer, dry beans for winter, and stunning flowers that brought beauty to even the hardest times. Unlike regular pole beans, runner beans produced beautiful red, white, or bicolored blossoms that attracted pollinators to the entire garden while creating edible privacy screens that could reach 10 feet high. The plants showed incredible resilience to heat, continuing to flower and produce beans even when summer temperatures soared and other crops failed. Depression-era families would plant these beans along fences or trellises where they would climb high, creating walls of green leaves and vibrant blooms that produced food from ground to sky. The beans could be picked young and tender for fresh eating, or left to mature into large, meaty dried beans that provided protein-rich meals throughout winter. A single planting would produce continually for months, with yields so high that many families could trade their excess beans for other necessities. Number 1. Dandelion, the cultivated wild green. While most people today think of dandelions as lawn weeds, Depression-era gardeners knew better. They cultivated special varieties of dandelions that produced leaves twice the size of their wild cousins, and these weren't the bitter lawn invaders we know today. These were carefully selected plants that provided food from spring until winter. What made dandelions especially valuable was their incredible versatility and early appearance. Every single part of the dandelion could be used. The young leaves made fresh salads in early spring before other greens were ready. The older leaves could be cooked like spinach. The flowers could be made into wine or fritters, and the roots could be roasted and ground as a coffee substitute. Dandelions appeared in early spring, often providing the first fresh greens after winter when families desperately needed vitamins. Depression-era gardeners would mark their cultivated dandelion patches with sticks to distinguish them from wild plants. The deep-growing taproot meant these plants survived drought and poor soil, providing reliable food when other plants failed. They were nature's multivitamin, packed with more nutrients than most store-bought vegetables, and they cost absolutely nothing to grow. These 20 forgotten crops weren't just plants. They were survival tools that helped American families through the toughest times in our nation's history. Each one was chosen for its ability to provide reliable food when it mattered most. If you found this journey through Depression-era gardening valuable, hit that subscribe button and check out the next video on your screen where we'll explore more forgotten wisdom from our ancestors.